Good evening. Welcome back and happy April.
Welcome back to Wellness for You. For our veteran members who have watched us over the last couple of months, welcome back. And for anybody new, thanks for joining us. Um, it is April 28th, and April happens to be Minority Health Month. So for today's Wellness for You, we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And we hope today's session is really interactive. Don't forget, you can ask questions on the chat. We'll be asking questions, and that'll give you the chance to win prizes. So, just keep those comments and questions coming.
Yeah, so if we want to pop up the prize, the potential prize that you guys can win today for being engaged with us throughout the session, that's going to be a great one to win. So we'll have a couple of chances for you guys to win that today, and it's all about engaging, sharing, responding, and winning any of the trivia today with us. And the trivia today is more engaging. So, but that is a rice cooker, a 6-cup rice cooker that you can cook both your rice, your vegetables, even meat in, all in one handy dandy tool, kitchen tool.
Now, we call this Wellness for You because it's for you. We want this to be personalizing your health goals so that you can succeed at meeting those goals. And if you caught our session back in January, at the time when everybody was setting resolutions and thinking about these goals, you guys all came up with something that you were going to work on for this year. And we try to check in with you from time to time. And so we're going to pose the question again today. How are you doing on your goals? Back in January, we set SMART goals. So hopefully you wrote it down and determined, by this date, I'm going to accomplish this, or I'm going to start drinking more water, whatever the case might be. So please use the comment section and just let us know how that's going. Maybe you're ready to move on to the next goal. A couple months ago, or maybe just last month, we talked about how a lot of times people are falling off their resolutions, their goals at this time of the year. So remember, we're here to help support you and give you any assistance that you need to try to reach those goals.
Yeah, so as we're waiting for folks to start putting their responses into the chat, we'll just remind you of this month, our theme. So last month was March. It's already April, but the end of April is taking place in like 2 days. Can't believe it's come that fast. But throughout the month of April, we've been focusing on and celebrating minority health. April is Minority Health Month for folks who do not know. And so with this month, it's unique. It encompasses all minority groups, and we focus on their health, their well-being. And specifically around this year, of course, it's around vaccines, vaccine education, vaccine awareness, and vaccine access. So if you have any questions about vaccines, opportunities to get the vaccines, any questions you have about the vaccines, feel free to call our hotline number. It's on our website. That's at nfpmedcenter.org, and you can learn more about that. But for today, for this session, we're going to focus on a different part of minority health and wellness, and it's as it relates to our food items. And so with cultures, various cultures, we have dishes that are passed down throughout our heritage. And a lot of times when we come into a different environment and we begin to go to the doctor and to the dietitian, and we might be experiencing some health conditions, we might have the preconceived notion, or in the past, we might have been told by someone that we should give up something that we grew up eating because it's not healthy. Or we might believe that we need to give up something that we grew up eating because it's not healthy, traditionally what is considered to be healthy. So in today's session, we really want to help to kind of dispel some myths, so you guys are aware that things that are passed down through your heritage is not a big X on it, right? It's not that you can't eat it. We just want to give you some examples, some tips and tricks on how to continue to eat your heritage foods, but in a way that it promotes your overall well-being. And we do that like always, Wellness for You, we do that by helping you to personalize your plate. So we're just carrying that theme on throughout all of our sessions as we talk about nutrition and food. But today is going to be specific to cultural foods, heritage foods. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Kelly and we'll dive deeper into it.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. I'm glad you mentioned the personalize your plate. If you remember last month when it was National Nutrition Month, that was the overall theme. And it worked really well with Wellness for You because that's what we're here to do. We want everybody's plate to speak to them. You know, it has to be food that you like to eat and that you can afford and that are part of your culture so that you can stick to it and just meet those goals. So what we're going to talk about today is how those healthy cultural meals can complement your lifestyle. And part of the way you can do this is through personalizing your plate. So one of the things that we've made available on, I believe somewhere nearby as a downloadable document, and certainly on our website, are tip sheets for different cultures and just how typical meals in those cultures relate to the plate. Because, you know, not everybody's plate looks the same. And one of the things that I use a lot in teaching people how to eat a little better is the My Plate. And, you know, typical American westernized diet does not always look like what a lot of folks are eating. And at NFP, we see such a variety of cultures. Our city of Cleveland is very culturally diverse. So as a provider, I have to remember that it's not just standard meat and potatoes and lettuce and tomatoes and, you know, all these basic things. I have to make sure I educate myself on the things that you guys are all preparing and eating and that you like to eat, because I'm seeing patients from different backgrounds and I like to learn about different types of cultural foods too. So one thing that I wanted to mention is the guidelines that I use, the plate that I use. They all talk about the same kind of guidelines. And we talk about these every month on Wellness for You. Things like, and I'll throw this out there, if anybody remembers like some of the recommendations, the things that you're usually reading about when it comes to healthy eating, like what does that mean? What kind of things is your dietitian telling you? What kind of things are you reading about? And you can put those in the comment box, but just as a little reminder, things like making half your plate fruits and vegetables, or you might have heard of eating more plant-based foods, things like whole grains instead of those enriched grains, lean meats like poultry and fish, and then even meatless sources of protein like nuts and seeds and tofu and soybeans and things like that. Adding calcium-rich foods. I know I talk to patients a lot about their calcium sources. Water, drinking plenty of water, staying hydrated, not drinking the sugary drinks, and in general, like limiting salt, limiting sugar, limiting fat. What else? Eating breakfast is a big one. Really great nutrition advice. Also, washing your hands before you prepare your food and just food safety. Looking at nutrition facts labels, and then getting plenty of exercise. Like these are all things that we talk about every month and that I talk about with patients all the time. And I think everybody understands that that's what healthy eating means, but sometimes they don't think that their cultural foods will fit into that kind of advice. So what we want to show you today are some examples of how you can absolutely eat the foods that come from your heritage and your background and your culture and still meet all of those recommendations that I just ran through.
Yeah. So we want to start by showing you guys some different pyramids. Some of you all may have seen these pyramids before. It might be brand new to others. But what we would like you to do is take a look at the pyramids, see if there's anything that speaks to you, if there are food items that you yourself use, your family use, or you have enjoyed at a local restaurant around the town. If you're in Cleveland or another town, definitely shout that out. So we'll know where we can go get some of these great cultural foods. and enjoy it as well in a safe way, physically distanced. But yeah, so we'll start by putting up the African pyramid. So on this pyramid, we see at the very top. Well, let's do a little background. So pyramids in general, the whole concept, and Kelly, you can chime in. The whole concept of pyramids, from top to bottom and bottom to top, the tinier the space is on the pyramid, that means the less amount of food you should be consuming from that pyramid each day and at each meal. So like always, no matter what culture, well, I won't give that tip away, but just pay attention to where things fall on the pyramid as we show you the different ones. We have a total of 3 that we're going to show you. So this one is the African Heritage Diet Pyramid. And I know the last month we talked about diet, but this really shows you what we mean about diet. You'll see that term over and over again. Diet is really just the food that you eat that make up your daily regimen. So diet is more a regimen, not a fad diet like we talked about last month. And if you did not get a chance to hear about fad diets, make sure you tune in to that once we're finished here. Not now. Don't log off now. But right now, take a look at the pyramid. See some of the food items up here, how it starts very tiny with sweets and then goes down to dairy, the different type of dairies in there. That is a yogurt. Then you go down to eggs, poultry, other meats, healthy oils. With the fish and seafood, that's self-explanatory. You got some imagery there. Different herbs and spices. A lot of herbs and spices is used within the African heritage. We would need a long list of those. And then you have the beans and peas. You see how small that triangle is, but it's still bigger than like the sweets and the milk and the protein, but not too much bigger. It's very important to get your beans in and your whole grains, which is over there to the right. And then their pyramid is pretty unique, right? So you got these triangles up and down, kind of oblong, and it's pretty cool. But you just take a look, see what you notice there within each section of this pyramid. And then what's unique about this one, you see the word over there, tubers. That's a very unique name. So those are like root vegetables that's grown underground. And so some of the food items in there you might see in the grocery store. You might have to go to an African market, but it's available there. And then you have your big size of your pyramid, which is all your greenery. Greenery is something you might see often throughout. And then what Kelly said at the very bottom of the pyramid is enjoying a healthy lifestyle, being active in any way that you can be active. That's also something that's universal. So just wanted to show you that one. And before we go on to the next one, I just wanted to check to see if we have any comments in the comment section about it. Okay, nothing yet, but let us know if you have enjoyed anything out of that food pyramid. And if not, we'll go on to the next food pyramid.
All right, the Asian diet pyramid. And already I'm seeing some similarities. So hopefully your memory skills are at work and you're remembering what was on the African pyramid, and then taking a look at this Asian pyramid and try to identify what's the same, what's different. But what I like to point out for this one especially is look at all these plant-based foods. So I mentioned earlier that a healthy diet is more plant-based. What that means is eating things like fruits and vegetables and whole grains and nuts and seeds, foods that come from plants. And this doesn't mean necessarily like bakery and sweets and things that are meat-free, but just that the majority of your diet should be plant-based foods. And I think this is one of the best examples of that, because look at the size of that plant-based portion of this pyramid. You're probably seeing some familiar vegetables in there and maybe some that are a little more unique to Asian diet. But, you know, you're also seeing that activity and the social connection involved with food and eating. I think in the Asian culture, there's a strong sense of, you know, eating together as a family and as a group, and just the social connection that comes from eating. And then the majority of the protein is coming from seafood, fish and shellfish. And you can see the recommendation here is at least twice a week. And guess what? That's exactly what we say on the My Plate. And for like a typical American diet too. And you have to remember that a lot of these recommendations came from studying people from other cultures, and the fact that, you know, perhaps in Asia, their rate of heart disease is a lot less. And so if we could follow more of this kind of diet pattern, that we may have a lower risk of things like heart disease. So we get a lot of our recommendations from these other pyramids. And this is a good example of that. All these vegetables, things like legumes and beans and peas, and then that seafood twice a week. And as most pyramids will show you, all of that processed food, the sugar, the salt, the fat that we're trying to cut back on are pushed way up at the tip of this pyramid as well. And then, you know, what's unique to this pyramid is that they're showing not only water, which is great to drink throughout the day, but also tea, because that's such a prevalent part of the Asian diet. But if there's anything on this pyramid that looks particularly tasty, or something that you have experience with using, or if this is the kind of diet that you eat most of the time, let us know in the comment section.
Yeah, that was great, Kelly. That was great. That looks amazing. And for folks that know me, they know I've spent 2 years in South Korea, and this food pyramid represents that, the cultural foods that we enjoyed in South Korea, very much so. It's on the spot. So definitely my love for tea grew while I was over there. So definitely try that out. Include some of these items on there in your everyday food regimen. So now we're going to go on to our third pyramid, and be sure to put in the comment section any of these items that you've enjoyed, whether you've actually enjoyed an Asian dish or you incorporated those ingredients in one of your, you know, regular dishes that you make on a daily basis, as well as things from the African pyramid. And now we're showing you on the screen the Latin heritage food pyramid. So this one here, I'm not sure if you guys see it yet, but there's a lot of commonalities across the board with these three food pyramids that we've shown so far. And a lot of these food items I know I enjoy on a daily basis from all three food pyramids. And with this one, what you will see the same as the other ones, that the things that are high in carb are closely, very, very closely to the top. And it shows at the very, very peak of the pyramid. So that indicates that we should be eating less of those, less often, and more of the things at the bottom of the pyramid. And you still want to be mindful of grains. That does not mean you give them away. We'll talk about that, you know, further on. But it just be mindful of how much grains that you eat. Just because it say grains at the bottom of this one doesn't mean that we eat like bread all day long, a whole big loaf of bread, right? We all have to be mindful of how much of it we eat. It does not mean we need to give it up. All right. But we also don't want to mislead and have folks thinking that they can eat a whole loaf of bread. That's not good for anybody, no matter which heritage you come from. So I just want to check really quickly in the Facebook section just to see if we have any new comments about this. I have somebody that said, I love tofu. You know what? I have to get used to tofu. I'm not going to fib here on this live right here. Tofu is a unique thing that I'm not a big fan of, but I have had it where it's been disguised, and it was decent. It was decent. Kelly makes great tofu dishes, so I enjoyed it. I won't say it tastes like chicken, but I do enjoy it from time to time as a nice protein meat replacement. But just really quickly with this food pyramid, some things that you might notice is that you might see jicama. Jicama is a great root vegetable that I've enjoyed making. It has kind of like a pear. If you think of a pear, it gives me a little bit like of a pear sweetness, but with the like a Idaho potato type of, you know, texture. But it's a great root vegetable. Other things that you might see on here is the galapintos, tropical fruits. Some things that you might see folks making from this food pyramid might be a breakfast option that includes tortillas with beans, shredded beef and chicken, something with quinoa and papaya, some type of stir fry with steak and tomatoes and onions served with bread. So it's a lot of things that you might enjoy here. You know, America here is a melting pot of all different cultures and heritages. So you are able to really get out and enjoy it. And just tell us if you tried anything like that. And then also remember to plug the restaurant so we can go enjoy it as well. All right, so now that we showed you all 3 food pyramids, we just want to see if anybody kind of see some commonalities. Myself and Kelly, we've said some things that all those 3 food pyramids have in common, you know, as far as like the very top of the pyramid versus the bottom and all along, you know, with some things that you might see that's common throughout. But let's see if folks have any responses in Facebook.
And if you're old enough to remember the old food guide pyramid from the United States, you know, it had the same 5 food groups that have been around for an awful long time. We use the My Plate now, but if you can remember the old pyramid and how that was set up, do these pyramids remind you of that old pyramid? Like, what are the samenesses and the differences?
Yeah, and I see here, that's a good point, Kelly. I see that we do have a comment from Ms. Dara. Hi, Ms. Dara. You are one of our first folks that commented. So you're going to win that great rice cooker. It's like a 2-level rice cooker where you can cook and steam vegetables at the same time that you're making rice and that you can prepare meat in. So you are our winner. Congratulations. You're going to get that coming your way. We'll connect with you. But to her comment, Ms. Dara says that I have a shellfish allergy and don't like most fish. So all pyramids have a big gap for me. It makes me eat more eggs, which are not as good according to the pyramids. So that's a good point. As far as if you have an allergy, you definitely don't want to eat the shellfish. I don't necessarily, and I'll let Kelly comment on there. I don't know if that's necessarily something that we have to have in our diet, right? Shellfish, but I think it's more so if you are going to eat it, the pyramid shows you realistically, okay, you know, eat it periodically, maybe not every day. And if you do, don't make that the biggest part of your meal. So I'll let Kelly really speak to that as far as, is that something that's required? Should she, I mean, she can't eat it, but do she have to even worry about that being a gap in her diet regimen?
I think when I look at these pyramids, what the big takeaway is for the visual of the pyramid is that the base of the pyramid is the widest part. So most of the foods that you're eating should come from the base, which is all the plant-based stuff, the fruits, the vegetables, and the legumes and all of that. As you start going up the pyramid and it starts narrowing, now you're getting into foods that you probably don't need as much of, like your proteins. And what the pyramid's trying to tell you is that if you can get protein from fish that twice a week, then that's pretty good because you're getting all the other benefits of eating fish. And then you're working your way up even further, and now there's more protein sources available to you, like the eggs or other meats and stuff like that. So I think it's just a matter of you want to get protein sources in your diet. If they can be from fish, that's great because fish has a lot of good nutrition going for it. And then the other meats that are a little higher up on the pyramid in the more narrow section are maybe a little higher in saturated fat than the fish is. So they're all good protein sources. It's just fish is such a good one. And in some of these cultures that we're talking about today that are perhaps more coastal and have more availability of shellfish and seafood, you know, that's going to be prominent on their pyramid. If you think to our American pyramid, we just have like a meat group. So all of these meats fit in this one big group. In fact, things like eggs and nuts and seeds fit in that same protein group. So they're all good sources of protein. It's not necessary to eat fish if you're allergic to it. But if you remember, and I don't know if we talked about this yet this year, but fish are just a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. And there's other ways you can get those in your diet if you can't eat fish.
That's excellent. Those are excellent points. So Dara, hopefully that cleared things up and that was able to kind of answer, you know, your worries about not being able to consume foods out of that portion of the pyramid. So we're going to transition a little bit to talk about, I know we just talked about those food items in that pyramid, but Kelly, did you want to speak to some of the groups that we don't have a pyramid of right now, but we know we have quite a bit of patients and community members that we serve at NFP who fall within the Middle Eastern population?
Yeah, so when we were researching for today's session, it became painfully obvious that there is no good pyramid that represents all of the foods that our patients from the Middle East might be making on a regular basis. And so again, in interest of learning more about this and being able to better serve our patients, I was trying to put together like a nice list of what this pyramid might look like using some of these typical foods. And some of the things that you might expect to see on a pyramid for like Middle Eastern heritage foods would be in that bottom portion with the more plant-based, the fruits and the vegetables. They might use a lot of things like pumpkin and different types of squash. I know I saw a ton of recipes using things like raisins and other dried fruits like dried apricots. Olives and eggplant are prominent in this heritage too. So I would expect to see like the base of their pyramid with all these fabulous fruits and vegetables. Also, the types of meats that they're eating most often, fish is part of that, but more prominently might be things like lamb and goat. Lamb happens to be a little higher in fat than even beef, but it's thought to be a less saturated fat, so it could be a little like a healthier meat. It's got a nutrition profile that's very similar to chicken. And then goat has lower fat than beef. So, you're going to see both of those types of meats probably on this pyramid and that are used most often. But then other sources of protein are things like almonds, pistachios, pine nuts. They might use a lot of things like mung beans and chickpeas. You might be familiar with hummus and other like bean style dips made out of these chickpeas or garbanzo beans. Their grains might be a little different, a little unique, like basmati rice, vermicelli. They make dumplings that are called mantu. And I found that fascinating because you'll see in a minute a recipe that I made for potato pancakes. And potato pancakes are something that are in a lot of different cultures, but they're all referred to as something different. You have latkes, you have potato pancakes and German potato pancakes. Dumplings are another one of those things. So you've got dumplings in Middle Eastern cuisine called mantu, but then you also have pierogies, which are just dumplings in my family. And there's probably a million different ways to say dumpling that are just slightly different depending on what culture you're talking about. But and then some other things, like I mentioned, the sources of calcium. Like in the Western diet, we might encourage people to drink milk or eat low-fat cheese or yogurt. Well, yogurt is prominently featured in Middle Eastern cuisine because they use it for sauces. So, they might be getting their calcium from the yogurts that they're using. But really, most of the Middle Eastern food is all about the seasonings and the sauces, and that's what makes it so delicious too. You'll see certain plant-based things on their pyramid as far as herbs that they're using to spice up their food. Things like cinnamon, cardamom, cumin, coriander, cloves. These are all C words, I just realized. They all start with the letter C. But also saffron and mint. So just other ways that they're using herbs and spices. And what we're hoping to get across by showing you these pyramids is that, these are ingredients that are used in these cultures. And so you're assembling these ingredients into meals and into dishes, and they can all fit within like a healthy way of eating. They're just going to look a little different from one another, but they also look a lot alike too. So yeah, I would say the Middle Eastern pyramid would probably look a lot like the ones we already looked at, with just a couple little differences.
Yeah, that was great. That was great, Kelly, with this. giving us a lot of insight. So one thing that I would love for us to do is show a couple of pictures on the screen of some items, specifically at Dave's Mercado that's right next door to our Ridge location at Ridge and Denison. And it's very unique. They have a complete, when you walk into the produce section, they have so much diversity in produce that they have there. And we just wanted to show you guys some images to see if it's some items that you yourself enjoy preparing. Maybe we can use this as some trivia, Kelly, to see if anybody can name these items. I don't even know if we have the name, so maybe I should have asked you that. But just we can put them on the screen and let's see if anybody can recognize them. Oh, the names are on there. So
yeah, I tried to get the name in there so that I could even remember what I was looking at. These are things that are just, they're so beautiful to look at, and they're right at the entrance to our Dave's Mercado. And so I was just compelled to take pictures of some of these things, and it got me thinking, these are probably things that people purchase often. And I mean, I don't personally use them, but I think I'm going to start. So I did a little bit of research on these things. But I'm also curious to know, like, how many of you out there are using these ingredients and what for? Like what you saw there, the calabaza is actually like a type of squash. So you can use it just like pumpkin, or in recipes that call for like any kind of squash, like butternut squash or acorn squash. Because of that nice, rich, deep orange color, it's very high in vitamin A, just like pumpkin and squash. So, like you could branch out a little bit, and maybe one of your traditional dishes calls for squash. Try using this calabaza. It is from the West Indies and the Philippines, by the way.
Nice.
And what's next? I'm not going to say this right. Coco Malanga, product of Ecuador, if the sign at Dave's is correct. But a lot of these are those root vegetables that Michelle mentioned earlier, and they can all be used in place of traditional potatoes. So again, if you have like a dish that calls for potato, you can be using some of these more unique vegetables. The next one is Yucca Root. So this might be a little more commonly known. This can also be used as a substitute for potato. And these things, because they're root vegetables, they're high in vitamin C. They're particularly high in fiber. And they're just giving you more options to do more of this plant-based eating that we're always talking about. This might be yautia, if I'm saying that right. And there's a couple different versions of this available at Dave's and elsewhere. This is something that must be cooked, by the way. So you can use this as a substitute for potato as well, but it has to be cooked. Otherwise, it can make you a little sick. But, all these things look very similar, and they can all be used in a similar fashion.
Yeah, that is excellent. So I would love if folks could put into the chat section if you have ever eaten any of these food items, and what you have made with these food items. Like, what do you put it in? Like, what kind of recipe? How do you enjoy it as a family? Or again, if you have went out to a restaurant some point in your life and you've enjoyed these items, what kind of recipe were these food items included in? So as you put that in the chat section, I wanted to just preface as we transition to showing you some of the cultural dishes that myself and Kelly prepare for you all today. That again, we just want to remind folks that are just tuning in that today's focus is all about heritage dishes, cultural dishes that we enjoy, that's passed down throughout our upbringing. And we just want you to know that, although the U.S. is now a melting pot, you don't have to give up what you grew up eating just because we're on this U.S. soil. You can take the things that has been passed down to you by generation to generation until it landed on your plate, if you will. And we're just talking about how we could enjoy those cultural dishes without completely having to turn over our plate, but just maybe modifying some things as it relates to portion size, which is the main thing. I think Kelly and I agree on that. is really portion control when it comes to enjoying any type of dish, no matter what heritage or culture you are from. So with that being said, let me check really quick to see if we have any responses in the chat about any of the things you just showed. Mary Lee, she said, yucca is wonderful. It's either yucca or yucca. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Please correct me if I'm not. Is wonderful in soup. So I haven't had it, but she's saying it's wonderful in soup. I'm going to have to find a soup. I think Kelly enjoys soup as well.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I encourage everybody to branch out a little bit and try some of these things too, because there's a lot of wonderful food out there and things that we don't really think about. But just take a look in your local grocery stores, and if there's something there that's unfamiliar to you, with the internet now, just you could do a little research and find out how to make it. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to be on like this Middle Eastern food kick for a while, I think.
Yeah, so you can really find out so much just by Googling it. And we will have a link for you guys later to click on, and then you can check out all different type of cultural dishes from all walks of life, so you can enjoy that. And then you can share that on our Wellness for You Facebook group, and share with us how you created it and how you enjoyed it. So we're going to dive into the first official recipe. I'm going to just do like a little brief intro to it, and then we'll show it to you, and then we'll come back and discuss that recipe. So first up is a recipe that I made. We're calling it Power Bowl, but honestly, when I first had it, I learned of it as an Indian dish, and it was called Buddha Bowl. And so we had different type of ingredients in it. It's when I really was honing down on my eating, but I didn't have a lot of time. So 1 pot dishes, 1 pot meals, and then 1 bowl meals was the easiest way for me to stick to a healthier food regimen while I was on the go. So I could literally eat in between meetings, eat as I'm going side to side or in the community, but still eat something that's going to fuel my system. And so Buddha bowls or power bowls, however you want to name it, we're going to show you how I make mine and how it's built up, and then talk about how universal it is. And then we'll transition to Kelly's recipe. So let's get that started. Let's put that one on the screen. All right. So
Wow.
the first thing I'm going to say is, did anybody else think like, wow, could scooping these vegetables in this bowl take any longer? Like I was like, herb and scoop. But that bowl, I'm telling you, it's always a hit. I actually, when I made it, my husband took it right from me and took it to work after I made it. But it was good because I actually was making for him, but so he could take it. I did think we were going to split it, but he wound up taking the whole bowl. He deserves it, working at the vaccine clinic. So it powered him up throughout his day for lunch and dinner. So the one thing I would say, and maybe you guys already could tell, but that bowl was in an essence universal, right? So you had things that were across, like as far as food items, you have food items that was represented in all of the pyramids that we've seen. And I'll get to the main one because it's going to transition into Kelly's. But you've seen things that we use with all different type of dishes, whether it's American or not. You've seen yum yum sauce, so that's supposed to be tradition to Asia. What else? I had guacamole. That's supposed to be a Spanish, from avocado. So that's supposed to come from that part of the world. And then I didn't have any meat, but I had seeds, and seeds and nuts are kind of universal as well. But there's one food item that I really want to speak to really quickly that I believe is a food item that unites us all. And that was the base of that bowl. I believe food is one tool that we can use to unite everyone across the culture, but the base of that food bowl or the power bowl was rice. And rice is something, because it's a very affordable commodity. That's something that folks eat across the, I don't want to say the universe, but around the world. So no matter where you live, someone's eating some form of rice. So in there specifically, I had a Minute brand, and it was brown rice with quinoa. This blend, oh, there you go. This blend has brown rice and wild rice combined. So these little cans here or bowls, I find these at Walmart, but you might find it at Aldi, at Target, Sam's Club, wherever your grocery store is. So this is a quick way for me to get in a nice portion. I don't eat brown rice or wild rice for every meal. And sometimes I don't eat it every day. But when I do eat it, I have to make sure I'm eating the right portion size. So this is exactly 1 cup. Okay, 1 cup is already cooked. And I didn't even eat the full bowl at one meal because it was so hearty, like you see, and it really was filled to the top with so much goodies. But other than that rice, they also have the jasmine rice, right? The jasmine rice, that's something that is also a rice that you might find with different cultures that enjoy it. And then another way you can enjoy the base of that is by having couscous, right? If you can see it there. So this is something that's unique to a heritage. And so you can find these at a lot of different grocery stores. Again, the key is just the portion size. And it's a half a cup uncooked and a cup cooked, correct, Kelly? Is that the correct portion size when it comes to rice?
Usually a half cup cooked.
Half a cup cooked. Okay, that's okay. Mm-hmm. So with that, because I had so much goodness on top of that base, even if I were to split it down the middle or to take half of the rice out, all of that other stuff on top, because it was tons of vegetables, is filled with a lot of fiber. And fiber is what fills you up quickly, but also does a lot of other goodness to your body systems. And then the last thing I'll mention, well, second to last thing is, the different beans. And we've seen that in all the different food pyramids, there was a section for some type of beans, and beans is a great base for a bowl like that or for soup. And the key is just portion control. So we just wanted to show you that kind of example, something that could be universal across the board, no matter what heritage you're from. A lot of people eat rice, and it's okay to eat rice. Just remain in the portion size. So half cup cooked from what our dietitian says, and just make sure the rest of that plate is filled with a variety of vegetables. So you're getting a lot of different goodness. And then if you are like myself, periodically, I'm mindful of eating too much rice, too much grains. I have started to take a liking over the past 5 years to what is called cauliflower rice. And it is a great substitute. Now, I don't put butter and sugar in it. That's how I normally eat my white rice. But the cauliflower rice is a great substitute if I just want to eat like brown rice, but I really don't want brown rice or steamed rice, but I'm trying to watch my weight at that moment. And sometimes grains make me tired. So I pay attention to my body and I eat the cauliflower rice so I can still enjoy it. It tastes good. It's still hearty. It's still fulfilling because it is a carb, but it is a much lower carb and it's filled with fiber than it is with the regular rice. So it's some variety there that you can really enjoy rice, and that rice food item being something that unites us because it's universal. So I just wanted to mention that. And if you've ever tried a Buddha bowl or a power bowl, tell us in the chat section and tell us what kind of ingredients you include in it. And then put a picture on our Wellness For You page. Yeah.
Yeah, those dishes make the best pictures because they're nice and colorful and beautiful. I was counting the plant-based foods as I was watching the video. I think I counted 13 plant-based foods. And so I'm glad that you're asking folks to put their pictures up there because I want to see what other veggies you all are using. You know, your Buddha bowl could look different than that. And what's great is that all of those things are relatively economical too, you know, and probably in your pantry already for making other things, the rice, beans, and then any vegetables that are in season or that you might get from like a distribution box or something, you know, just throw that all in there. That's what's great about it. A lot of patients are like, you're not going to tell me to eat salad every day, are you? I just can't eat salad every day. But I mean, that Buddha bowl is like a type of salad, but it's using those good hearty vegetables and you flavor it up however you like. So I love it. All right. Well, I made a little dish that is prominent in my family. And the reason I decided to make this and to go off of what Michelle was saying about the cauliflower rice is that so my family is Polish and we make a lot of foods that are just fried dough and pretty fatty and not a lot of vegetables, you know. So the joke had always been like, how could I possibly eat this food and still like have a healthy diet? And so using that whole cauliflower rice concept, I thought, you know, when I make potato pancakes or even those pierogies I mentioned, they have potato in them. Couldn't I just use cauliflower instead? And then I'd be cutting way back on the starch and way back on the carbs. It would still be plant-based. And so I experimented with this a little bit. So take a look at my recipe.
Hi, today I'm making potato pancakes. And this is something that my Polish family eats from time to time. But potato pancakes are something that a lot of different cultures enjoy. You may have heard of latkes or German-style potato pancakes. But today I'm going to be making one with mostly cauliflower to cut down on the amount of starch and carbohydrates that are in this very famous cultural dish.
The main ingredient in potato pancakes is potatoes. We're going to be using Yukon Gold potatoes to give it more of a buttery flavor. But most of the batter will be made with my fresh cauliflower here. You'll also need 1 whole egg and an egg white, plus some whole wheat flour to hold it all together. We'll be using vegetable oil to fry them in a pan, and we're going to be adding some chives and using a little bit of baking powder and salt to season it. Always start any recipe by washing your hands thoroughly for 20 seconds with soap and warm water. Next, rinse each potato thoroughly and give the skin a little rub to get as much dirt off as possible. Also, rinse your cauliflower off thoroughly and start to remove all the outer leaves here. We're going to cut this up into small pieces to use for our recipe. Once your vegetables are clean, you're going to chop your cauliflower up into small chunks and pieces. And this is pretty easy to do. You're going to want about 3 cups of cauliflower. Also, you want 1.5 cups of potatoes. We still want our potato pancakes to taste a little like potato, and it's okay to have a little bit of that starch in there. So you're going to cut these in cubes as well. Once you have 3 cups of cauliflower and 1.5 cups of potatoes in nice small pieces, add it to boiling water and let it simmer for 10 minutes. Next, let your cauliflower and potato mixture boil for about 10 minutes and test it occasionally with a potato masher or a fork until it is very tender. Once your vegetables are fork tender, carefully drain them. Be careful, they're really hot.
Once everything's cooled off a little bit, you can get to mashing them in a large bowl. They should start to make somewhat of a batter. And then we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, which is 1/3 cup of whole wheat flour. That's going to help bind everything together. 1 egg plus 1 egg white, lightly beaten. 1 tablespoon of chives. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And if you're trying to be salt-free, you can certainly use a salt substitute. And get that batter all mixed together.
Drizzle a little bit of the vegetable oil into a pan and get it nice and hot. And then your batter is ready to be added to the pan. You should get 12 servings out of this batch of batter. And all you're doing is dropping an amount and then getting it flat. Remember, there's raw egg in here, so try to use utensils. And we'll wait for those to cook and we'll be flipping them over. After 5 to 7 minutes, they're ready to flip. And just flatten them out slightly so that they continue to cook thoroughly. Once your pancakes are done on both sides, they are ready to eat. Serve with some sour cream or some plain Greek non-fat yogurt for a wonderful side dish or even as a main dish.
Now that looked good.
They were really good, I do have to say. And my kids loved them. I just had to laugh at the floppy sound when I flipped them over. So, but what I wanted to point out is, the chives like added a little something to those potato pancakes. And that's something that if you have growing like on your kitchen counter or outside, you wouldn't even have to like necessarily go to the store and spend money on that, but something that you could just snip off of your plant and add to a dish like that. But yeah, I really was pleased with the way they turned out using the cauliflower, and it cut the carbs in half. So for anyone who's managing diabetes or just in general wanting to cut back on their starch intake for calorie control or weight management, we say that your plate should be mostly vegetables, and potatoes are a vegetable, but they're so starchy that you almost have to count them as a starch or a bread. And so now you're talking about that 1/2 cup serving, which is pretty skimpy. So my thought was, if I could make these with cauliflower, then I'm using a non-starchy vegetable, and maybe I could eat a few more than normal. A serving is 2 of those, and all the nutrition facts are on the recipe that you can download. But yeah, I mean, anything that you can modify in your traditional foods, just to cut back on the salt or cut back on the carbs or on the added sugar, you might have to experiment with that a little bit. And I'm sure that you can make it taste almost exactly like the traditional version, but just feel more comfortable that, it's a little healthier for you.
Okay, those were great tips. I hope folks who are attending and anybody that tunes in a little bit later, that you really take that into consideration and into account, how you can kind of like substitute one for the other to kind of still enjoy what you love to enjoy, but substituting it with, a little bit of the healthier food options to include in it. So then you can enjoy more of it, but still remain within that, approved portion size or carbohydrate intake for your meal time. So with that in mind, let's just, before we end here today, we wanted to show you guys a couple of pictures of some recipes that are unique to certain cultures. And we just want to do like a quick trivia based on some things that we talked about today. Kind of look at how the plate is made up and then see where it might be some things missing from different parts of the food pyramid, or maybe, just, I don't want to give you the answers, but take a look at the recipe and let us know how we could tweak it so that way we can still enjoy the things that we grew up eating, but include some things that might be healthier or switch it up so that we are doing more of the health promotion versus causing harm to ourselves by overdoing it with some of the things that we enjoy eating growing up. So let's put the first one up. All right, so this dish here is unique to the Hispanic Latinx community. And with this dish, you have a mixture of rice and beans. So that's something that's very traditional. And then you have some type of a piece of sausage there. And then you have fried egg and toast. This is something that's traditional as a breakfast meal that folks of this heritage would enjoy. A lot of my colleagues speak to this recipe here. And so they talk about it all the time, where their family members may have gotten some type of chronic disease, but their dad or their mom really enjoy this kind of food, or they themselves do. And they don't want to give it up because that's all they know, right? That's how they grew up enjoying breakfast. And so one thing we talk about is how we could tweak it where they don't have to give it up. So if you guys want to chime in really quickly, what are some things that we can do to this plate, that you think that we could switch up a little bit so that way they can still enjoy the food that they grew up eating, but it's a bit healthier. Let's see if we have anyone that wants to chime in. I see someone said, Madison says maybe a side of fruit. Okay. Anybody else? Miss Mary, Miss Dara? Let's see. I have to keep refreshing my page. Okay. So what do you think about that adding a side of fruit, Kelly? How would that play into this meal?
I think that would round out this meal. And I think, close to all 5 food groups are definitely represented. And it's another plant-based food, add some fruit, add a little sweet. I might not eat the bread or the toast with this just because, like we're saying, the rice and beans, those are great plant-based foods and you can season them up and add tons of vegetables in there, but they are pretty starchy. So I might let the rice and beans be my starchy part of my meal and just forget about the toast.
Okay, and that's a great alternative. And then I would say for folks that's like, no, I gotta have my toast. I get it because it took me a while to be able to enjoy my breakfast meal without toast because that's what I grew up doing. What I did was transition. So instead of having a full piece of toast plus rice and beans, if that's what you're having as your other grain, you could literally split those down the middle so you can get both. You can cut back on the amount of rice and beans that you have, and you can have a piece of toast. So you can still get what you are you're used to getting. You have your meat, you have your eggs, you have your fruit. Maybe don't have a full bowl of fruit, maybe have like a couple of spoonfuls of fruit, or one fruit chopped up, small fruit, a tropical fruit that you enjoy, but then do like a half a slice of toast and a half of this portion of rice and beans. So that way you can still enjoy it. What you think about that, Kelly?
No, that's perfect. Yep. Just making little tweaks and changes like that is the best way to do it. That way you have everything that you have the taste for, but just in smaller portions so that it can all fit on your healthy plate. And I'm glad we showed a breakfast here because, when we look at pyramids and stuff, and the stuff that's up in the tip of the pyramid is always the fatty, starchy, sweet stuff. And I know a lot of traditional breakfast foods in our country are like pancakes and waffles and donuts, croissants, like it's all that kind of stuff. And more often than not, when I talk to patients, they don't eat that for breakfast. They eat this kind of food that like some of us might eat for lunch or dinner. So I just wanted to point out that like this is appropriate for breakfast. You know, you don't have to eat like those traditional breakfast foods, and you could also eat eggs for lunch and dinner. So I'm glad we're showing that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And with that one, I just wanted to, let me see here, because I wanted to give the name and say the name correctly. It's Gallo Pinto. It's either Gallo Pinto or Gallo Pinto. That's the name of that recipe. So we'll show one more, so we could just do a little, examination of it, if you will. Examination is probably a strong word, but let's just check it out and see what we think, that we could kind of tweak it so they can still enjoy it, but let's just make it a bit healthier. So this is actually my guilty pleasure. I won't lie to you. This is, since I was younger, this is something, especially when I started working, I feel like I would go to a Chinese place or Asian place in my old community when I was growing up, and we would eat it every weekend. This would be like a treat for us. But whether you are eating kung pao chicken, orange chicken, sweet and sour chicken, my favorite was always General Tso chicken. We would eat that. They would always start off by putting lau mein or fried rice. Some folks will have steamed white rice, and then we would have whatever meat option we would choose. And then we would have it with a fried egg roll and a fortune cookie, and kind of drink all that down with a soda, right? So I know the number one thing now that I'm older and I got into nutrition, the one thing I understand is that everything that I mentioned that we enjoyed is loaded with sugar, right? It's loaded with sugar. So how can we take a top heavy or a sugar heavy loaded meal, reduce the carbohydrate, and make it a bit healthier so we can live a longer life of high quality? What's some things we can do to switch this up a little bit? Let's see if we have some comments.
Yeah, I think, for all the patients that don't come from an Asian background and know that pyramid shows all these great vegetables and things like that, the temptation is, well, I'm just going to get Asian food because it's healthy for me. This might not be made exactly the way that a traditional Asian family might make it, but it's certainly the one that we're exposed to the most and the one that you're going to get as takeout and when you go out to eat. So there are going to be ways to order this a little different and maybe make it a little healthier. So what are some ways we could do that?
There we go. I was waiting for somebody to say it. Add some steamed broccoli. I always love that with orange chicken. Me too, Madison. Me too. Yes, adding vegetables. I think that's the biggest thing that's missing here, is something that we can add and some things that we can take away. And what Kelly spoke to is very true. So when I was stationed over there in South Korea, we had tons of broth-based soups. Wonton, let's see, we had Korean barbecue, but it was loaded with vegetables first. The rice that they served came in a small tin can, but it wasn't like a big bowl like we receive here when we go to these fast food. This is technically a fast food restaurant, right? So when you go here, it's very, very carb loaded foods that are put in it normally comes in a tray. And sometimes I have to tell folks not to put so much. So, and sometimes I don't even get rice and noodles. They now have an option when you go to Panda Express. It's called Super Greens, where you get kale, you get cabbage, you get broccoli in there. So Madison, that's where your broccoli is. And I actually, instead of having this bottom of that plate loaded with lau mein and fried rice, I have the majority of it as my entree of the mixed greens, the super greens. And then if I really, really want something, I might have a little bit. I ask them just a little scoop of lau mein or a little scoop of brown rice. But I have mainly the greens on there, and I get one side of the meat. And if I were to get two sides of the meat, I save one for another meal. So that's a way that you can kind of tweak it as well. So you can still enjoy it. We're not saying take it away. Enjoy it, but just tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. I like the thought of adding the vegetables there. And, you know, we're talking about adding vegetables, not just taking stuff away, but if the vegetables could take the place of some of that rice or noodles or all that meat, that would make it a more balanced meal. So, yeah, take advantage of all those vegetables that are at these restaurants and stuff that are cooked for you, and they know how to cook them just right. So,
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
right. Thanks, Madison.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. I'm glad that we were able to kind of cover quite a different cultural dishes, dishes that were passed down the line within folks' heritage. And I'm looking forward to more folks responding. Feel free to continue to engage even when this live session is over, because we definitely go back, take a look at the comment sections, and we engage with folks, and then that informs other sessions that we have coming up. So one thing we wanted to make mention of was some links we're going to put into the chat section that you guys can click on, where you can have access to other recipes, many different recipes. So Kelly, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, a lot of the information from today's session came from an organization called Old Ways, and their website is oldwayspt.org, and that stands for Old Ways Preservation Trust. And their big initiative is to get people to go back to eating what like people in our heritage used to eat before all the processing came in and all the westernizing of our diet kind of started causing heart disease and whatnot. So there's a lot of recipes on there. In addition to the 2 recipes that we prepared for you today, those will be on our website too. You can also check out FAO.org, and that is the website for the Food and Agricultural Organization. And so they have a lot of information about different cultures and food. And, you know, if you see something unfamiliar in the grocery store and want to look that up and see how to prepare it, that's another good website to check out for that. Oh, I think you're muted, Michelle.
Apologies. Apologies. So the last thing we'll mention really quickly before we close out is an opportunity to go and gather. If we're talking about gathering, going back to old ways, go and gather some fresh fruits and vegetables, and you can do so for free. Like you can get a nice amount of fruits and vegetables for free through a program called Produce Perks. And so we'll put that in the chat section. You will click on that link. It'll take you to our page, our Facebook page. And with that link, you'll be able to apply to get $40 worth of free produce. So $40 worth of fresh fruits and vegetables through this coupon program with our partners at Produce Perks, which is also in partnership with Ohio State Extension. So definitely click on that. Check out to see if you get approved for it. It's really a quick turnaround. In about a week's time frame, you will know if you're approved, and you should receive your coupons within a week's time frame. And then you take those coupons, again, it's $40 worth. So you can take it and technically, you know, basically go shopping at these local farmers markets. We'll highlight some in either our May or June session, our Wellness View session. And we might even do something live with them, going around so you can check out the farmers market, see how everything works, and see what's there for you. But take advantage of these coupons because it's $40 for free. You don't have to be on any type of program. You have to be a person who have kiddos in your household. So you got kiddos in your household, you fall within a certain income. It's very, very simple to apply for it. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us and I can walk you through it. Okay. You can contact me at our number 216-281-0872. My extension is 1294. So contact me and I can walk you through the application process and we can make sure that we can see about getting you some free fresh produce. So then you can make some of these meals and take some things from these different food pyramids and enjoy it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully you got a couple good ideas to start using, and we want your ideas too. I don't want to be the only one posting pictures of my food on Facebook. So as you guys are cooking, take a snapshot and put it up there. And, we've been talking too about putting together like a cookbook through NFP. So if you guys coming from different backgrounds are making these fabulous cultural dishes that you want to share with the rest of us, we would love to see them.
Yeah, and you don't have to formalize the recipe. Just send in tell us the name of it. If you have a picture, send it in, and then the ingredients and how you make it, and we'll put it together in a template and have like a digital NFP cultural cookbook. That's what we're calling it right now, and folks can access it on our website. So today's recipes that we put together will actually kick off that digital cookbook, and we might pull some ones from our past sessions that's relevant and include it in there as well. And we'll make it downloadable. I'll double check with Madison behind the scenes, make it downloadable so you can enjoy some of this in your home. All right. So again, you know how to get in contact with myself and Kelly through Wellness for You. Engage with us. We want to see you guys. It's becoming more and more beautiful outside, more and more warm. Hopefully you're able to do more walking, getting out, do that very, very bottom of those food pyramids, which is getting active. That's part of your wellness. And just take small steps every day, and it'll become a part of your everyday regimen. So until next time, guys, take care, enjoy the weather, and we'll see you soon.
See you next time.